Hey everyone, it is Catherine Byers-Breet, and I'm here today to talk about how to make great introductions. So imagine you're sitting at your desk or you're looking at your phone and a message pops up, either a text message or more likely a message on LinkedIn. Somebody in your network is asking for your help, and it goes something like this. Hey Bob, I see that you're connected to Tony at ABC Company. Would you introduce me, please? Now, you've got three choices. You can, number one, ignore the request, like flat out ignore it. You can B, respond to this person and say, hey, things are kind of crazy right now. I don't have time to make an introduction, but why don't you just drop my name? That's choice number two. Or choice number three, you can take 5 or 10 minutes out of your life to make what I call a warm introduction and take some time to craft a personal introduction between this person and this person. Now let's break these down and talk about the pros and cons to both options. So now the first option, to just flat out ignore the request. Listen, if it's a person that you've never met, you don't know who they are, and you're too busy to respond, you check them out, you look at their LinkedIn profile, and you can't think of any earthly idea how you know them, you have no mutual connections, and you're busy, then I suppose you can ignore it. But by and large, the way I've built my LinkedIn network over the last 14 years is it's pretty carefully curated. I've got about 8,500 people that I have personally met or spoken to live in person or over the phone, or I've worked with them, or we've got a mutual connection who introduced us and we've chatted on LinkedIn, what have you. Okay, so my carefully curated network of people in LinkedIn is something that I cherish, and it's how I feed my family. My network is really valuable. And so it's important for me not to flat out ignore people. Doesn't mean I get to everybody on a daily basis, but ignoring people isn't good practice. And so if I totally don't know them and I can't figure out what they want and they don't take the time to say, hi, Catherine, how's it doing? How are you doing? Or if they're rude to me, sure, I can ignore them for now and maybe get them to them later. But the vast majority of requests that I get are something that I should pay attention to, which moves me to your option number two. Now, option number two, again, is to reply to the person and say, hey, everybody, or say, hey, John, thanks for reaching out. Say, I'm crazy busy right now. I don't have time to introduce you to Susan, but feel free to drop my name. And you can say, feel free to drop my name, but here's what's wrong with saying drop my name. It doesn't help this person at all. So if you really want to help this person, just saying drop my name is going to get them ignored. When I get a message that says, hey, Tommy Lee said that I should reach out to you, if I don't really know Tommy Lee very well, it doesn't do you much good, and you're going to go in my maybe later pile. Now, if you drop the name of somebody that I know very well, I trust, it's, sort of an A contact, then I'm probably going to respond if you just drop their name. But it's just not really a very effective way to get somebody to respond to your message on LinkedIn. The third option, when somebody asks for your help and asks you to make an introduction, is to take 5 or 10 minutes and make a warm personal introduction. And I try to do this whenever possible. Now, the benefit is it's really good for the person that you're helping. It's also good for you because all of a sudden you're in control of how the introduction happens and what this person says about you to that person in that initial contact. Now, why is this important? Because if somebody that you don't know very well drops your name to another person, if you don't know this person very well, you don't know if they're going to be aggressive, rude, other words, just an aggressive, ugly networker. And all of a sudden, if you've given them permission to drop your name, you look bad. But if you make a personal introduction, you're in control of that first message. And I'm going to tell you in a little bit what to say to indicate, hey, I'm happy to introduce you to but I only just met Tom, or I don't know Tom very well. He just reached out to me on LinkedIn, but I'd thought I'd pass his message along. So this is where, in the invitation to the live stream, I talked about how to make great introductions while protecting your reputation. You really have to worry about that reputation thing because, again, you don't want to sick a bunch of strangers on your cherished network. And also, if you really want to help somebody, taking 5 to 10 minutes to craft that personal introduction is gold. It is going to boost the chances of them getting a response by 20 plus times. And that initial contact is going to be much richer and more meaningful for both, which means you're going to help this person out, you're going to help this person out, and this person over here isn't going to be irritated with you. So again, the best option is to figure out who this person is, what they want, make a personal introduction. You're not always going to have time and you're not always going to want to introduce people into your network. But when you want to help somebody, that's the way to do it. So let's talk about a couple of things. First of all, I've talked about why saying drop my name is no help to this person, that person, or you. Now what I want to talk about is fear factor. What's the worst that can happen if somebody's out there dropping your name, or if you stick your neck out and make an introduction for somebody? So if you're live with me on LinkedIn right now, and by the way, if you're interested in chatting with me live on LinkedIn and you want to hear about my next live stream, you've got to click the follow button. If you follow me on LinkedIn, then LinkedIn is going to tell you every time I go live, and I'm going live on a regular basis, at least once a week these days. So if you want to chat live with me or hear about my next live stream, click follow and you'll be the first one to know next time I live stream, and you can chat with me right now live on live stream. So let's talk about fear. It took me a little while when I was first out there networking. I didn't understand why people weren't responding to me via email, my voicemail messages, LinkedIn, way back, in the beginning of my career when networking was critical. I was in recruiting and I had to reach out to strange new people and they weren't responding to me. What I didn't understand is they were afraid of a couple of things. They were afraid of wasting their time on somebody who wouldn't appreciate and honor their network. They're so afraid of somebody wasting their time. Secondly, they were afraid of this person, in this case, me, making them look bad. This is especially important to understand if you're reaching out to somebody new or somebody that you don't know very well. When you're asking them to introduce you to somebody in their network, you're asking them to put their reputation on the line. For some people, that is so scary, they just won't do it. For most people, they're somewhere in the middle and they're nervous. They'll do it anyway, maybe. But they're certainly not going to risk their reputation if you send them a cold, impersonal message on LinkedIn. And I normally have examples with me. I mean, I've gotten some doozies over the years. Again, I've been on LinkedIn for 14 years, and I can't believe some of the things people say to me. There was one guy in particular I had no idea who he was. We had zero mutual connections. He reached out to me cold on LinkedIn and he said, Catherine, I need a job and I see that you're connected to so-and-so at 3M. I need you to make me an introduction. I used to work at 3M. It was 15 years ago, but Joe, blah, 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 blah. And I lost my job and I'm trying to get back in there. Whoa. This was early on a Monday morning. And first of all, I didn't know who this guy was from Adam. I had no mutual connections to kind of do a backdoor reference check on him and figure out, is he a good guy, a bad guy? And third of all, his message, he didn't even say good morning to me. It was just in my face. I need your help. I expect you to help me. And by the way, I blew up last time I worked at 3M and it was all this other guy's fault. Just not a good first impression. Needless to say, I did not make an introduction for that guy. I didn't know him and I didn't trust him with my carefully curated network. So anyway, I'm sure you have bad experiences too. So if you do, chat away, do share. What are your fears when you stick your neck out on behalf of somebody else and risk your reputation? Because the truth is, If you take the time to introduce somebody into your network and they don't follow through, or they're rude, they're aggressive, they're greedy, it's all about them. I mean, there are a lot of things that people can do in a networking scenario that's going to reflect poorly on you. I once got a phone call from a friend of mine in California. Here's how this whole thing went down. He was on LinkedIn. He was hunting for a director. He was CIO of a software company. He used to be roommates with my husband, actually. So I'd known him for years. He knew I was in recruiting for years. And he also knew that I had recruited IT people and marketing pros. So he needed somebody to come in quickly. And he reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, Catherine, I see you've got a pretty extensive network in the IT and marketing department. I need a director of marketing for my firm. Do you know of anybody?" Well, he was a friend. I wanted to help him. I took about 10 minutes of my time to go hunting on LinkedIn, and I found somebody who might have been a great fit for him. And I called her and I teed the whole thing up beautifully. And I said, "Here's the opportunity. Are you interested?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Great. Send me your resume. Look at his LinkedIn profile. Tell me why you're interested in the opportunity and give me 3 bullet points about what I should say to him to put your best foot forward." And she did. And that she didn't send me a resume, but she sent me a couple of bullet points. That took about 20 minutes of my life. You know, he's worth it. She's worth it. And I made a beautiful introduction for her to him and teed it up and said, "You know what? Brett, I think she'd be a fantastic fit for you. Here you guys go, talk." Well, unfortunately, the woman on this side of the conversation went dark on Brett. He needed to hire somebody. He needed to hire them quickly. And he replied to my LinkedIn message and said, "Hey, great to connect with you. I'd love to talk. When are you available?" Silence. She didn't respond for 3 entire weeks. I didn't know about this. I moved on with my life. Well, lo and behold, all of a sudden my phone rang about 3 weeks later, and it was Brett. And he said, "Catherine, who is this chick that you introduced me to 3 weeks ago? She is aggressively pursuing me. She's calling me. She's emailing me. She's pinging me on LinkedIn because she wants the job. But A, I already filled it. And B, she didn't say boo to me for 3 weeks. I didn't think she was interested." I was mortified. I said, "I am so sorry. I will call her and tell her to back off. I don't know what is going on with her." So I hung up the phone embarrassed. And I don't know if he'd ever take another introduction from me after that whole thing. But anyway, so I called her and said, I bit my lip. I wanted to scream at her, but I didn't. Took a deep breath and I said, "So I just got a strange phone call from my buddy in California. He says that you didn't respond for 3 weeks and now you're chasing him pretty aggressively. What's going on?" And she said, "Oh, I was working on my resume." So she's a great person. She's actually a really good director of marketing. She got frozen in analysis paralysis. She was working on crafting the perfect resume. Unfortunately, she didn't need a perfect resume because I teed it up so beautifully for her with Brett. She didn't understand that. She missed the opportunity, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, lesson after lesson that I've had over the years. And again, chat away, share your stories. Bad things can happen. Her intentions were good. She didn't mean to make me look bad, but that's what happened. So people are afraid of this. And you need to understand this, but how do you offset this? Number one, when you're the person who's making that introduction, like with me, what should I have done differently to make sure that she didn't do this and Brett didn't get mad at me? Well, I now know that I need to set expectations on this side and that side and say, "Hey, I'd love to make this introduction, but he's in a hurry. He's not going to wait around for you. Will you be able to talk to him in the next 24 hours? If I had asked her that question before I made the introduction, she would have hopefully said to me, "No, I'm not ready to talk to him. I need to work on my resume." And I would have said, "No, you probably don't. Send me your resume. Unless it's an absolute disaster, it's probably just fine. You're going to go straight to the interview stage with Brett because of my introduction." So anyway, I've learned to ask questions up front before I make that introduction. What does that do? That helps me. It helps my network over here, and it helps the person that I'm trying to help. So fear is ultimately if somebody ignores your request or they're skittish about it, they're probably afraid that they're going to put their reputation on the line and it's going to come back to bite them. That's the bottom line. All right. So third thing is you've decided that you're going to stick your neck out. You're going to try to help this person. How do you do that without risking your reputation? Well, there are a couple of things you can do. First of all, when I make those, what I've already talked about is I reach out over here and I say, hey, Tony, I'd be more than happy to introduce you to Bob, but I need you to help me put your best foot forward. So before I make an introduction, I push it back on the person that's asking me for help. Tell me why you want to talk to Bob. What's your interest in connecting with him? I want you to look at his profile. I want you to think about his past experiences. I want you to see if you guys have common ground. Did you work at the same company? Are you in the same industry? So help me understand what do you have in common with Bob and what's in it for him? Is there anything that you might be able to offer him in this equation? Now, people can't always come up with something that they can offer the person on this side of the conversation, but a lot of times they can. But that common ground thing, they absolutely can come up with something in common. And if they can't, it's probably not an introduction worth making. If there's nothing in common, like they went to the same school, they work in the same industry, they have 17 mutual connections, they're both scuba divers, they've both done TED Talks. It's pretty tough these days to do a Google search on somebody or look at their LinkedIn profile or their social media platform and not find something that you have in common with them. So I push back on this side and say, help me to connect the dots. Help me to find common ground and tell me what you want out of this person and see if you can think of something that might be in it for them. When this person sends me this message, all of a sudden my life is so much easier. First of all, my fears are alleviated because now I get it. I understand what's in it for this person, what's in it potentially for this person. I also know that I can make a good impression for this person and make sure I don't waste the time of the person over here. I copy and paste that message that this person sent me. I tweak it a little bit. I use my own language. I add in some things if I know something the two parties have in common, and then I shoot it off. But here's the template I use. This is what I say. I say, hey, Bob, I'm excited to introduce you to Tony. Here's why. Tony is also working on VR technology. You're both working on VR technology. In fact, he's with a really cool startup right now. I think you'd like to hear about what they're up to. So I'm reaching out to you to introduce you. Here's why I'm doing it. Sometimes the message is I'm introducing you because Dan's interested in a job at your company. I put it out there right away. I'm excited to introduce you guys. Here's why. And then the magic. There are two big things that I've learned to do to protect my reputation. Number 3 in my template is this. I say in my message, here's how I know this person. And that's the magic sentence, because that's the sentence that gives me permission to say, hey, by the way, I've never worked with this person. I can't vouch for how good he is. I have no idea about his work ethic or anything like that. I just connected with him on LinkedIn. It's an alert to my network that I'm introducing them, but I can't vouch for the guy. Now, if that sounds cold and calculated, so be it, but it's the truth. Here's how I know this person. Now, sometimes I'm able to say, I worked with this guy for 15 years. I will put my reputation on the line for him. You'd be crazy not to talk to him. Sometimes I'm able to make introductions like that, but only if I have personal experience working with somebody. All right. So that sentence, here's how I know this person. That's how you protect your reputation. Then number 4, this is another thing that I do, is I say, do you have a couple of minutes to chat with him? I never say, will you meet him for lunch? Will you take him out to dinner? Because it's too much to ask. It's not for me. to understand how busy this person is and how much time they have. So I just say, do you have a couple minutes to chat? And then it's up to this person to decide if they're going to just chat via LinkedIn messaging, if they're going to pick up the phone and call them. But I never sign somebody up and commit them to a coffee or a dinner or drinks unless I know both people really well and I know they're going to hit it off. So sometimes I do, but it's really rare. Okay. And then I'm not done yet. Then I say, I'll let you two take it from here. Here are your mutual contact details. And in that, I include Dan Jones, phone number, email, Michael Marvin, phone number, email. And I literally include their mutual contact details. And then I wrap it up by saying, I'll get out of the way and let you guys do this. But whenever possible, I toss in a little PS and I say PS and I mention the common ground. PS, you both play guitar in rock bands. PS, you both love scuba diving. I did that just this morning. I made a warm introduction for people and I said, hey, by the way, you're both scuba divers. And did you see the latest viral video about the dude petting a shark? I wish I knew about that when I was in Aruba last year. That was my PS when I introduced those two. Why do I do the PS? Because it's fun, it's personal, and whenever possible, I give them common ground. You both love Thai food. You both love traveling. You've both lived in China. Whatever that person said to me, or if I know them, that common ground, that is another thing that I do that is a key differentiator. And it's why people call me a networking ninja. It's why my response rate on LinkedIn is now off the charts. It wasn't in the beginning, but it is now. And it's why when I make an introduction for you, the chances of this person responding are tremendous. But this takes me time. It takes me at least 10 minutes to make a personal introduction like this, which means I can't do it for everybody. So this brings me to the discussion of when should you say no? When should you say, man, I'd love to help you out, but I just don't have time right now? Or when should you kind of leave a request alone? Let it sink to the bottom of your maybe later pile, because if they really want your help, they'll ask a second time. So when do I choose not to make introductions for people? Well, the number one main reason why I don't forward an introduction for somebody is if they're rude to me. If I don't know them, they're rude to me, and they send me a cold, impersonal message. Hey, will you introduce me to Tony? If I don't know him from Adam, they're rude about it. They're aggressive, and there's nothing in it for me except the risk of making me look bad. I will not make those introductions. Now, if I get a rude, aggressive message from somebody and we've got 17 mutual connections, I'm probably going to come back to it later one night when I'm having a drink and I'm catching up on LinkedIn, and I'm going to look at them. I'm going to look at our mutual connections. I'll check out their profile, and I might say, let me send a note to Jake and ask him what he knows about this Bonnie dude or Bonnie gal. So I don't like ignoring people flat out. And sometimes people seem rude on LinkedIn because they're desperate. They really need a job, or their boss is barking at them because they need another sale. Sometimes people behave kind of badly, not because they're bad people, but because they're in a hurry. So I don't always dismiss people out of hand, but I will not introduce them until I have a conversation with them on this side. And so if I've made a decision not to ignore them, but I want to figure out who they are and sniff them out a little bit more, I'll just click that reply button on LinkedIn and I'll say, hey, thanks for reaching out. I'd be happy to introduce you to Bob once I understand a little bit more about who you are, why you're interested in connecting with them. So fill me in. And then I move on with my life. Most of the time, those people never come back to me. But sometimes they do. And sometimes they take the time, they take 10 or 15 minutes out of their life to come back with me with a, hey, Elmer said that I should talk to you, and he looked at your LinkedIn profile and told me that I should ask you to introduce. And I say, oh, Elmer? Oh my gosh, if Elmer thought we should connect and thought that I should make the introduction, well, heck, yes, I'd be happy to do it. But I still want you to help me put your best foot forward. So anyway, these are some things that I do to protect my reputation and help as many people as I can. I have learned to be a generous networker. And I try to say yes as often as possible, but I've learned how to protect my reputation. I've learned how to protect my network. And I hope that the tricks that I've shared with you today are going to help you be a better, more effective, more generous networker, that they'll help you protect your reputation. And the biggest win of all, you know what's going to happen for you if you spend a little bit of time becoming a better networker who makes more meaningful connections like this? It's going to come back to you in spades. It's going to come back to you in terms of job opportunities. If you're a consultant or a freelancer or a business owner like me, you're going to get, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I have built our Bez over the last 14 years, almost single-handedly using LinkedIn. I really can't think of a scenario when I have gotten a new client, new book of business, where LinkedIn wasn't involved in one way, shape, or form. So anyway, it is your network is your most valuable career asset. And the way you show up in the world and the way you go out of your way to help other people will come back to you in spades. People will remember it. And 10 years from now, when you need help, those people will put their neck on the line and go out of their way to help you. So anyway, that's that for today. That's it for this topic of how to make great introductions without risking your reputation. I hope you found it helpful. And again, if you want to hear about my next live stream, you're going to have to click that follow button on LinkedIn. LinkedIn will alert you next time I go live. In the meantime, have a great rest of the day. Terrific talking with you. And good luck with your networking, I promise you. If you just try one or two of my tricks, you're going to have a lot more fun and success out there today, tomorrow, and for years to come. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.